Welcome back, global citizens. I am Pharaoh, and he, my co-host, is the Scribe, and this is our podcast, Stay Woke. Thank you so much for rocking out with us. We've had 3 episodes so far. First episode, Tinted, an American fuckery, the homeless crisis. Hopefully you had a chance to see that. If not, subscribe to Stay_WOQUE Woke. Our second episode was viruses and vaccines, right? Hopefully you had a chance to see that. And our third episode, which is 4 parts to this, is Black Men and Endangered Species. We had the first segment, which was about social media. Hopefully you had a chance to view that. And our second segment was economics, which was a vibrant discussion. Now we'll have politics and climate control. Yeah? Thank you so much. So I'm going to turn it over to my Scribe, and we're going to rock out in the next phase. Holla at me.
Thank you, Pharaoh. So I see we have some new teammates. We had to replace some members with some members. You know how it is. Life happens. So I'm just going to go through basically the format of the show. So Millennials versus Xers. So the Pharaoh has 2 fellow Xers on his team, and I have my 2 fellow Millennials on my team. And so we have 2 questions. Going off of the last show, we did 2 topics. So now we're finishing off with the other 2, which are politics and climate change. So I'm going to pose, our team is going to pose our question to the Xers and vice versa. And so the debate will begin. So good luck to everybody. Have fun, be yourself, and hopefully at the end of this, we'll all have some sort of resolution, or you would have learned something. So let's go.
All right. So am I introducing my team first, or you want to introduce your team? How are we doing this?
You know what? You go. You introduce your team.
All right. So listen, I'm going to start off. I'm Pharaoh. If y'all didn't know, Pharaoh from the Mali tribe in West Africa with direct roots tied to King Mansa Musa. Right?
There you go again. Bragging.
Don't hate because I'm claiming where I'm from.
Now we know who took their DNA test. Okay.
I took my DNA test, found out, right? I'm a motherfucker from Africa, right? But just Google that, though. One of the wealthiest men to walk the planet. I'm a father of 1. I'm a scientist. I'm an inventor. I'm working on becoming an author. And I'm obviously a podcaster. So I'm just honored to be among great African-American kings dialoguing about our future. So let's go, young men. And on my team, I have distinguished Xers. And I'm going to allow these men to introduce themselves. Let's start off with Dr. Put some respect on that motherfucker. Dr. Tayari Mchizaji. Holla. We need to unmute yourself, brother. There we go.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
They have me muted. So my name is Tayari Mchizaji. I'm reside out here in Atlanta. I'm originally from San Diego. Myself and Pharaoh went to college together. I went to medical school and residency up in Chicago, and I trained up at Cook County Hospital. I'm a emergency medicine physician, like I said, down here in Atlanta. I also do some administrative work, so I'm trying to see more of how the mechanics of the hospital works and how do we take care of our communities and bigger area cities, states, and then nations. And that's about it. And I'm glad to be here to do the spirited debate and find something out about the other brothers that are out there putting in work and get some ideas and some solutions. Everybody else did it.
Oh, you, bro. Hey, what's going on? My name is James, last name Canada. A little bit about myself. I'm like an old country boy with a big city attitude. Came to Las Vegas in 1972. Far as my relationship with Van Ness, we go back. He might have forgot some things. I knew some things and saw some things before he became who he became. And we both developed along the way. But
hey, man, we need to bring that up, bro. Listen, I know I did some dirt, bro.
Well, no, I ain't gonna
throw me under the bus right here, bro.
But I came to San Diego to get my securities license back in 96?
Yeah,
and
96.
You hosted me. And so I, come from a financial background. Then I went on to the entrepreneurial realm. Didn't make any money, so I had to get another job. And of course, that took me back into the bartending business. And I'm a bartender at the MGM. I wear quite a few hats. And so I'm dealing with people all the time and working with millennials on a regular basis. I have to train some of these virgins when it comes to the workforce. Well, some of them do lack experience, and so I have to be extremely tolerant, because if you take or empty the wastebasket, most of the time I shouldn't have to tell you to put a liner back in there because you took one out of it. So I have to be real patient sometimes when I'm working with the youth.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, my brother.
That was dry.
That was something, right?
Okay, I see where this is gonna go. Just a little side note, guys. So I'm gonna leave you guys on mute for the purposes of this recording. And so you're always going to be on mute. If you want to speak, just mute yourself. And then once you're done, unmute yourself,
So is that your hint for me to stop unmuting people?
Yeah, I can do it for you. But if you're not saying anything,
trying to control shit. They don't try to control us, bro.
If you ain't saying shit, don't put yourself on mute. When you're ready to talk, and you can talk whenever you want to, unmute yourself, okay? So I'm going to go over there and introduce myself. I'm the Scribe, the co-host. And on the millennial side, I have my two amazing teammates. I am originally from South Africa. I'm an actor. I live here in Los Angeles. And I'm going to hand it over to Ty. Go ahead, bro.
What up, everybody? My name is Terrell. I go by Freedom, from Brooklyn, New York. Kings County on my birth certificate. My mother's from South Africa. I haven't done my DNA test, but don't get it fucked up. The roots are strong. Corey's son in the very least. I'm residing right now in Los Angeles, California. I'm an actor. I'm a voiceover artist. I'm a music artist, rather media artist.
Mikael, go ahead, bro.
What's up, everybody? This is Mikael. I'm originally from Ethiopia, Africa, and I've lived in Los Angeles for 7 years now. I am also a fellow actor. I met the Scribe, pursuing acting here with two fellow African actors pursuing, our dreams here. And I'm also an aspiring musician. And really looking forward to this. It's amazing how we, postponed this last time around. We didn't know what was going to happen. But it's really good because I feel like we're all going to, get something out of this. You know what I'm saying? And it's good that we come here to talk about it and just process the whole thing. So yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, bro. Let's go.
All right, so I thought you were gonna introduce me though. No, I don't get even an introduction or
damn, my bad.
You just gonna let me just roll out?
I forgot all about you, bro.
I'm not trying to say that the millennial generation has absolutely no respect and we about to teach you something today.
I forgot about my elder. Let's go.
He was so worried about his team that motherfucker didn't have my back though. What's going on?
I'm just all about my team right now.
I got you, brother.
Talking about our team, what happened to Donovan?
You know what, bro? That he's at the protest right now.
He's at the rally. Give that man some respect. I'm going to say if he went out to protest today, I give that brother some respect. So now while he's doing the action piece of it, let us plot, plan, and organize, strategize, mobilize, and execute.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Get it.
But go ahead, Pharaoh. Introduce yourself, sir.
So I wanted to, before we get started with the first piece, are we doing the test first, or am I giving my poem? What you want first, bro?
I'm gonna give my poem.
Okay. So listen. So the Scribe always says, he always wants to start with this kind of eclectic piece because the millennials are this kind of eclectic group of individuals. So before we enter in any of our debates, he always wants to tell us something. So I think he wrote a poem to us, Xers. So let's hear the brother out.
Thank you. I definitely wrote a poem. You know how this goes. So my poem is entitled "Black is Our Blood." So it goes. Who could have seen this? Crazy, I guess. blinded by gas. One knee he knelt, that knee he knelt, no breath he gasped. Sir, I can't breathe. Yes, I concede. But no, they won't retreat. So protest we must, back for our just. Crying for our Floyd, black is our blood. We're back for our blood. Palms in a clenched air we must punch. Riots and moments, history and laureates. Tales of our fallen, smarter we have risen. See, they must envision life we have given. Taken for granted, no longer advantage. History rewritten, so sorry we have been awakened. Dormant no more, stronger we have grown. Yes, it's time taken back. Future is stolen. This contract is void. This case is futile. The charge is inevitable. Be on that, or we'll be on that. This ain't no wave. We're out for the cave. Clear as a gaze, we see beyond this racism. This ain't no schism. Equality is nigh, sorrow be gone. As we're back for our blood, because black is our blood. Thank you.
Yes, brother. Yes.
Yeah, that was very nice. Very nice.
Yes, brother. So I think, I'll before we get started in our game, or am I giving are we going to the political game first, or are we going straight to my poem?
Let's go straight into the game. We'll do your poem afterwards.
All right, so let's do this. So before we get started with the dialogue, I want to play a game with you, brothers. And I'm offering $100 per question, right? And I'm going to share my screen.
He putting his money where his mouth is, so.
I'm going to share my screen, brothers.
Okay.
And it's called political trivia, right? So Scribe, anybody can answer, but you tell me who want to raise their hands first. So the first question is, there are multiple questions, right? What movement led to what piece of legislation being passed that directly affected African Americans? I forgot to put in 1964, so let me add that to that. In 1964. And then, what two men were instrumental in making the legislature law possible? So 1964, right? What movement led to what piece of legislature being passed that directly affected African Americans in 1964?
This is James. It was, if I'm not mistaken, it was the civil rights movement, and the legislation or the legislator was Thurgood Marshall.
And it's the Voting Rights Act, I guess.
Was it the?
No, so that's wrong for both. Go ahead, Terrell.
Oh, I was going to say the civil rights movement.
It was the civil rights movement. That's the movement, but led to what piece of legislation being passed?
Oh, it was the.
Come on.
It was the.
Go ahead, Scribe. Tell me who.
Go ahead, James.
The legislation itself was the. Wasn't.
1964.
Take a guess.
Please go right ahead.
Go ahead.
Would it be the rights for African Americans to vote?
That's a component of it, but not. It's a component of it, but no.
Oh, wasn't it the Selma March or something like that?
No, it's a legislation, it's a law.
Yeah, we already got that part. We got the first part of it. It's just, it's not the Voting Rights Act.
It's the Civil Rights.
Yeah, Civil Rights Act.
The first right is Civil Rights, yeah.
It's the Civil Rights Act. That's exactly what it is. Now, what two men, since no one person got this, was kind of a group effort, which I appreciate brothers joined together. But what two men were instrumental in making the law pass? Signing it into law. What two men?
Oh, wasn't it?
One of the men, I would say Martin Luther King.
That's who I was going to say.
Boom.
James, go ahead.
I was going to say Martin Luther King as well. That was just right on the tip of my brain.
So remember, if it's signed into law, who has to sign it into law?
Oh, a lawyer. Oh, president.
Whoever was the president. Yes. Lyndon B. Johnson was the president.
Lyndon B. Johnson.
He was the president. There you go. So actually, it was the Civil Rights Movement and the Civil Rights Act.
Yes.
John F. Kennedy was the president that introduced the act, but Lyndon Baines Johnson signed it into with Congress. He got it passed through Congress. And Dr. Martin Luther King was actually present when he was actually signing in on the Civil Rights Act at the moment. They have a picture of him signing with Lyndon Baines Johnson together when the Civil Rights Act went into law. All right, so
I think it should go to Mikhail and James. I think they should split that $100.
Between who?
James
I like
and
the way
Mikhail.
you're thinking.
I agree.
Between who?
Between James and Mikhail.
Okay. No, but Terrell answered the first one too. He answered. I mean, you have to figure it out.
But we already established that it was the civil rights movement when he said that.
No, but he also said Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh yeah, he did.
He did say that,
It's
yes.
quite all right. It's quite all right.
He did all right.
Okay.
All right, so how about this? James, I love you, my brother, but I'm going to split that $100 between the two millennials. Terrell.
That's okay. No problem. Let me tell you. It's all good. They're young and they deserve it.
All right, here we go. So listen, next question, brothers. What are the 3 branches of government and their function? Talk to me.
Okay.
Executive.
Wait. It only can be one. Scribe, who went first? I think Tayati did.
Tayati had it first.
All right, there's executive, like the brother said, there's legislative, and there's judicial. Judicial is the Supreme Court and the courts, so it passes down laws and makes sure it's judged, I guess, appropriately, but we know that's a farce. You've got the executive branch, which is the president and everybody that's under him, and then you've got the legislative, which is Congress.
The congressional.
The bicameral, the Congress, and you've got the Senate, and you've got the House.
Okay. So that's the 3 branches. What are their functions?
Okay. Well,
you kind of hit it around it, but no.
Okay, no. All right.
You definitely got the 3 branches. You definitely got the 3 branches, hands down. Each of them have a specific function.
Right. The legislative makes the laws. The judicial goes over the laws and they judge it to whether they're constitutional or they're correct.
Constitutional. That's what it is. So it's got to be key that the judicial piece interprets the Constitution.
Of course.
Okay.
Then you've got the executive, which is just the commander in chief. So the primary or she is the person that will sign. You know, if you give a law and he gets a law on their desk or she gets a law, then they sign it into law. After judged by
that's the key thing.
They execute the law.
Well, there it is, bro.
Oh yeah, he got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Congratulations.
Did I put the answer in? Where did I put the answer in? Oh, there it goes. So the executive signs into law, the legislative writes the law, and the judicial interprets the Constitution.
All right.
All right. So Tayati, you got that C note, brother.
Good job.
Good job, brother. So this is the bonus question. Which branch of government has the House of Representatives and the Senate in it? And then how many members are in each?
Well, we answered part of that already.
You did, but tell me which one it is. Let's see if you're paying attention.
Legislative.
Okay.
So now you just gotta tell us how many seats in each.
The numbers,
There's 100 senators because from each state, and
That's
then
correct.
the representatives is a gang of them. It's like
So how many is the total though? How many states? Well, I'm not gonna help you out, so go ahead.
So there's 100 senators.
Yeah, 100 senators. Yep.
That's
There's
correct.
2 from each state. But legislators, I think there's like 432 or something like that.
Yo, that's so close.
That's close enough. It's 435, bro. That's close enough.
Wow, good job. Damn, good job.
I
Very
don't know
impressive.
how to deduce that either.
Right, but my point is saying this, brother, that we have an upcoming election. And the reason why I put the political piece in it, too, is that the point I want to make after we discuss directly about each of our questions is this, right? Say the president, if the legislation actually writes the laws and then the president signs them into law, we know that there's nothing that the president can do without the Senate and without the House of Representatives. So our key focal point, I think, in terms of agenda, in terms of voting agenda, should be clearly to win the House of Representatives, which we already have democratically, right, and to win the Senate. It effectively neutralizes the president of doing anything. The reason why we impeached him in the House and he got away with it because the Senate acquitted him. And the Senate, out of those two functions, has the final say-so in the law. So right now we have over 400 bills that have been passed that would help us out. And the reason why they haven't gotten through the Congress is because the Republican Senate has sat on all 400 bills. It's their choice whether or not to bring these bills to the floor to discuss. It's the sole responsibility of the majority leader, which is Mitch McConnell, out of motherfucking Kentucky. And we need to get his ass out soon. He's running against a lady named Amy McGrath, right? And she is like 1 percentage point behind him. But my point in this piece is that if we looked at critically how to make a true change politically, but I think that we can focus on multiple areas and not necessarily just the presidency, right? If we understand how our government is really ran. So just wanted to throw that out there. Good job, brothers. Great job. Thank you guys so much for that piece.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pharaoh, for that. And congratulations to Terrell. You know, Tahiti got a good 200, so he balling. And Mikhail, you know, you guys get to share the first one. But before we jump into the show and actually do all the questions, I think Pharaoh has been inspired by my creativity and my spark to write a poem every time. So he's like, you know what, I'm gonna write a poem too. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's go poem for poem, Millennial versus. So I'm gonna give it over to Pharaoh to do his poem.
Thank you very much. Of course. There's no way I'm going to allow the millennials to, drop a bomb on us without having some kind of, I think, response back. Of course, uplifting response. So I titled this poem, I call it The Millies. Dear Millies. Dear Millies. Dear Millies. Death, horrific and painful as it may be, what gives me hope is directly in front of me. The next generation, my millennial black brothers, powerful, courageous, unlike no other. Kings of the new century, immersed in the world's adversity. Let us close the generation gap and create a lasting harmony. Granted, our criticality in reference to your responsibility is only symptomatic of our generation's disparity. To bridge that gap and to close the hole in humanity's heart, mutual respect, equality for all is a damn good start. Let us power up, gentlemen, dialogue, raw and rich in realness to cure this planet of its racial illness. Our unity is our strength. Our divide will diminish the drive to reveal the light of power we inherently have inside. Now is the time to rise. Make your choice, my brothers, and decide. Happiness versus misery, humility versus pride. I'm not looking for a moment. I seek a movement, consistent and driven until we experience real improvement. That is the change I seek, absolute and finite in its mission. A world filled with compassion, that's the true vision. That effort begins with us. Let us have vigorous, open, and honest dialogue. This shit is a must. Social media, politics, economics, and climate control. Our people and our planet are endangered, and we must make it whole. Gentlemen, let's take the first strike, protect our families, strengthen our resolve. This issue of inequality is for us to solve. The solution lies within us. No need to search outside the self. Let's put our minds together and create this generational wealth. To my millennial black brothers, we as Generation X, based on these type of conversations, pledge to change with you this broken nation. Black men are an endangered species. Police brutality, broken families, and generational poverty. Fuck what you heard. Fuck what they think. I'll lose my mind first before I let a black man become extinct.
Hey, let's go. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear you. I'm here for that. Your black card is
that was great, man. That was wonderful, man.
Yo, my only complaint is that you call this Millies. I Other than that,
You lost it right at the start.
I don't know. When I think Millie, I
Of course, your generation would pick out of everything the thing that offends you the most. Of course, I'm blind by dear Millies.
Yeah.
That was the Lil Wayne reference.
I mean, we're still waiting on our Millies, so we'll see. But okay, guys. So I'm gonna
let's go.
Let's jump in. Let's do this.
Brothers, get comfortable. Get a little sippy sip.
Make sure you got your drink.
I'm right there.
Get yourself already good to go. Put a little something in the bottle. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I hear. Go ahead, Scribe.
Millennials are gonna go ahead first. I'm gonna pose a question to you guys, and feel free to answer it in whatever format. I know Pharaoh has his own people, so yeah, let's go. So here's our question. So as a generation that has dealt with the Rodney King riots, what can we learn from your past efforts and mistakes to make sure that this movement has a long-lasting impact, so that the next generation won't face the same cyclical fate in 25 years? In what ways can you personally contribute to further this movement? I don't know if I need to read it again.
One more time, brother, please.
Okay. So as the generation that dealt with the Rodney King riots, what can we learn from your past efforts and the mistakes, and what mistakes not to make to ensure that this movement has a long-lasting impact, so that the next generation won't face the same cyclical fate in 25 years. So we don't repeat this cycle for the next 25 years. In what ways can you personally contribute to this movement?
Great question. So, James or Tayati, you get him, Ty.
Go ahead, Ty.
The last part of that, what ways can you personally, I didn't hear the rest.
What ways can you personally contribute to further this movement?
Okay. Well, yeah, the Rodney King thing was really messed up. I think it's similar to all these videos that we're seeing currently, where you see a violation of human rights, you see the racism, you see, the imagery is right there, and it doesn't take a genius to interpret it, where a black person is, basically unarmed, not resisting, not doing anything that can threaten any of the lives of the police. At least in Rodney King, you had a number of cops sitting there talking amongst themselves, laughing. The story that they gave was not true about a Yugo going about 100 miles an hour or whatever they said he was doing to first get pulled over, and then just the beating him senseless, 4 guys clubbing him and everything like that. We followed the case closely. I think, we were on college campuses, so it was really a little bit easier to motivate people and to get people around and rallied up. The frustration like people are feeling today is real. And you try the peaceful protests. So we have a Colin Kaepernick who's doing it peacefully and respectfully. And, also that guy went and asked the help of a person who was a veteran, I think, of what's the best, most respectful way that I can, bring attention to police brutality against Black and brown people, but especially Black people, men and women. And he said, you can kneel. That's a respectful thing. And they lost their minds about this being disrespectful to the anthem and the flag. So then you get this George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. You get tons of people that are murdered, in front of us. And we rallied, we stopped certain things. We had an agenda about, not defunding the police department, which was, put on the table now, but knowing and not doing sensitivity training either to say, okay, the police need to be more. We know that the arm of racism that's been around since you had the overseer on the plantation. It's never been about protecting us. It's been about protecting people with wealth, which typically is not us, or communities of non-color, and protecting them from us by use of the police department. It was tough back then. And when you had the riots, it was just steam being let off. So I'm not really too critical of people going out and touching Targets or touching Costco's or whatever, because the only thing that they respect is their money. Now, that can't be sustained. And I think what Van Ness brought up is you need to vote. You need to also have an agenda. What do we want? Do we want programs that are going to help get brothers and sisters jobs? Do we want positions of power where we can oversee a sheriff or who was it that was, over the police department in LA, to say, hey, and then get some brothers in there that are from our neighborhood. So we're not being policed by outsiders. We're being policed by people that are inside. It was a heavy time, dude. You had gangs that came together, which, was unheard of. Certain people that have had, still waters run deep. You had gangs that were hating on each other, the 60s against this group, or whatever, for years and years and years, and they came together. But one of the things I'd say about contributing to the movement is what you two are doing, is providing dialogue. One of the brothers that's a Millennials out there right now, putting his foot on the turf and raising his voice. Talking about what should be our agenda is something that we could talk about right now. So what is it that we want? Once we get the platform, what do we want? And then also having an organization. I think some of the dangers of having a true democracy is nobody steps up and takes responsibility. So if there's nobody that's coming up and saying, hey, this is what we want in terms of reparations, or this is what we want in terms of, body camera footage, and this is what we want in terms of judges that are not going to give these guys a slap on the wrist or move this case like they did in Rodney King to Simi Valley, where you're judged by your peers and your peers don't see anything wrong with that behavior. They actually are like, hey, that's all right. That dude must have did something, or else those police wouldn't beat him. That's not where we come from. We need them to know we didn't do anything wrong to deserve a lot of these deaths that happen. It's just murder. So how do we contribute? We set an agenda, we vote, and we come together and we have conversation amongst each other on what's the best way to go forward, what's equitable for people, what are people experiencing in LA versus Chicago, New York, Louisiana, Atlanta, wherever we're from and wherever we're at, Vegas. And just to not lose momentum, just like Van Ness said in his poem, I don't want this to be a moment, I want this to be a movement.
Excellent. Can I jump in now?
Go ahead, Jay, that's you, bro.
One of the things, first of all, everything Tayati said, I totally support. But one of the things that really jump out at me is, first of all, we can't have it both ways. We do have to address killing ourselves, first of all. Now, what I'm saying is that, okay, a cop goes out and murders a black man. Now, where is the protest and where is the rage when a neighbor is killing a neighbor? See, we can't have it both ways, because that's the deflect that people are going to say. They're going to say, okay, you guys, or this movement is somewhat, I'm not going to use the word reverse racist, but why is it that when a white man kills a black man, there's rage, which I understand. I'm part of that rage. But where is the rage when brothers are killing brothers? And most of the time, these killings are senseless killings. So we have to really re-identify who we are, number one. Number two, I feel that protesting is great, but there also has to be some consideration, because if let's say we're somewhere in an economically oppressed neighborhood and we're marching. There's a few name brand businesses in there. There's some mom and pop shops in there. Now, once those businesses are gone, Big Mama need her prescription filled. Big Mama may not have a car, and Junior may be in college. Why take out essential businesses in your own community? Now, I mean, it's up for discussion. I'm just simply saying that there has to be a strategy when it comes to unleashing all of this rage and anger, because it is very effective when you hit people from an economic perspective. In fact, there's a great video going around right now, and we have to relearn to use this power called boycotting. Right now, there's a movement going on called NFL Blackout. These brothers got a viral message going around, and they're refusing to watch the NFL because of their own prejudice against a person like Colin Kaepernick, who took a peaceful approach to what he described as police brutality. But somebody turned it against Kaepernick and decided to start making it against the flag. So my whole point being is that I agree with you wholeheartedly. But at the same time, we also have to take a look at the man in the mirror when it comes to this violence. And also, violence is not just killing each other. There is something known as passive violence. We have to start respecting each other. We cannot no longer stare down at each other, none of us owning any property, none of us owning anything. When I say none of us, I'm just using that as an example. And here we are in the store looking at each other like, you know, what hood you from? What is the significance in that?
Don't you think that's part of systemic racism, though? Don't you think it stems from that?
That's what I'm saying. We got to speak.
Yeah.
I would love to. I don't want to cut you off. But first of all, I'm going to address what you said earlier. First, I want to address what you said earlier. You said something about the rage and making sure that it's controlled. First of all, you know, being peaceful doesn't work. And as a living, breathing being with a heart, if you're attacked, you need to lash out. And if you're oppressed for hundreds of years, first of all, you have that built up amount of rage. And now it needs to go out, which is also very granted. And for change to happen, something has to click. I agree with you, however, it needs to be controlled. We should not do it to our own communities. We should not do it to Black-owned businesses. We should not do it to individuals' cars or what have you. It should be focused on government property. Just like the riots, and excuse me, Takise, please forgive me and to correct me, but it was so what almost
I didn't.
Wait, say that again.
He was talking about the riots in Soweto.
Yeah, I was referring to what was it, riots, if I'm not mistaken, in Soweto, where they only targeted government property.
Like during apartheid?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were numerous, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going. I mean, I do agree with you. You know, it shouldn't be mindless, you know, when there are innocent people and people in the Black communities that are less fortunate that don't need you to tear their shit up. However, it needs to happen. It just needs to be controlled and focused towards police and the government and government property.
Yes.
And then you see crime and killing Black on Black, basically. and also looking at each other and sizing each other down and what hood you're from. And I have to agree with the Scribe in suggesting that it's a part of systemic racism. And we've been living not only in fear and anxiety, but also on survival and survival of the fittest and every man for himself. And we were taught to hate each other, and we were taught to oppress each other, and we were taught to be segregated. This is a whole nother real problem, a real serious topic with deep roots that stems from systemic racism and white supremacy. It is a real problem.
No, listen, brothers, I absolutely agree it's institutionalized, right? It's been inbred since we were brought over here, right? The whole purpose of coming to America in the first place was for textile development and agricultural labor, right? There was no other plan for us coming here but to help, the Caucasian man build the actual, country. But I want to address your question directly. What I think happened in the past, if you look at the 60s and 70s, when my mom was coming up and been born, she may have been like 15 or 20 then. They were really extremely conscious, African conscious. They had power movements. Tati, your parents were in that movement also, right? Where they Black Panther movements, they were organized. So I don't necessarily know I agree, Terrell, that you can have a peaceful movement, because Dr. Martin Luther King really led a great peaceful movement and affected change in a huge way, right? But I do think instead of pointing the blame toward the anger, instead of asking, where it happened and what happened, I need to ask why, right? Why at this point do we feel that way? So in the 60s and 70s, they had these huge conscious movements. But my mom, who grew up as a child then, really, she didn't participate in that sense. So they might have learned, so she didn't really teach me. I had to look back and see that in the 60s and 70s, when my mom was a child, how they operated. And when Tayati and I were in college, we revived or relived that movement. We became more conscious by going to college and really learning. But what's happening between those generations is there's no consistency in terms of agenda. Right? So we may have movements where we get upset at activities that happen. We rally together, we march, we get one or two things done, but it's nothing that it changes to what the Scribe was speaking to in terms of systemic racism, right? It's institutionalized. It's inbred in our laws and our policies. This is why this political piece segment is so important. This is why I had that political piece at front, right? To see where our knowledge base was in terms of how to truly focus and tackle institutionalized racism. So we can get out in March and we'll get a few things done. But what I don't want, and the Scribe and I have been talking about this for the last week, is to let 2 or 3 weeks from now, let that power die down. And what happens is that the vote is coming in 5 months, in November. Collectively, to me, if you want to change and you ask, what can we do from the past that we should do going forward? I think your generation and our generation collectively together needs to promote throughout our country the lead. We have more Black doctors, right? More Black lawyers. We have more than we ever had. But it hasn't changed the institution itself because we haven't mobilized around the country. So to James' point, when you said that in Louisiana, when Big Mama needs to get her prescription from the store, we're looting in the area. Like a collective plan would know. So we have 350 million people in America, and about 14 to 13% of the population is Black. So that's around 50 million African Americans. If we knew the geographic locations of them throughout the country, what we could do is organize, divide the country up. I'm not trying to say like SGI does, but the Western Territory, the Central Territory, the Eastern Territory, right? And have our leaders be able to, any of the states that fall within the area that have issues, Black issues, or Black agendas, when Senate, when the government, when the governors, when the attorneys, when the other legislative pieces come about, we can mobilize and really affect change that way. We can run for office, Senate, for offices, the things that we don't normally focus on and do. So when we had the discussion earlier on, Millennials, about what careers, right, should you be looking at to take, right? I wasn't trying to force you into the other positions, but to me, we are already behind the ball, gentlemen, right? So there's a choice. One, you can live your free best life. Be whatever you want to. pray to the crystal gods or whatever you need to mean, whatever you want to do in terms of this, right? But my point is this: those, and I'm not trying to say you have to choose those fields, but to affect institutionalized, already embedded change, we need to have us focus on areas that can do that work. And there's really no other way, right? We can march and protest, but what's in power to make and pass laws that are now enforced by the police, right? Once you have the military backing and the laws to back that, that's why they enforce the law. You have to march to protest the activity. But I use the example that if I want to kill a fucking tree, that I wouldn't keep chopping the branches off. I could chop all the branches off and you look at the tree and look dead. But those branches grow back. If I wanted to kill the tree, I cut the fucker at the root and the tree dies. I feel we're hitting the branches. I love protests. They help to bring about awareness, right? But protests without organization, without plotting, without planning, without organizing, without strategizing, it becomes just that, a protest. And when it dies down, then the institutionalized racism still stays the same way it is. So, Tayati asked me the other day, where is the color of change or Black Lives Matter leaders? And we have 800 different little minor groups. Collectively, we need to organize into geographic regions and have one collective agenda that may have multiple subjects to it. That way, when we ask or demand stuff, when you say your vote counts for something, what are you holding it for? No one's just studied and went through the laws right now. The vote is in November. We haven't collected. We know there's 4 senators. You guys know there's 4 senators that we can change and win the Senate back. So even if fucking Trump wins the presidency again, if the Democrats win the House and the Senate, it effectively neutralizes his bullshit. We can reinvestigate him. We can open all the things that have been blocked by the Senate, right? 4 seats. 4 seats and 4 different senators. Our focal point, to me, is unorganized. So to go back and answer the question, Scribe, without taking too much more time, brothers, is that what I think happened in the past, we lost the agenda. No one was in the place to be able to back up when they left to continue to say your next generation to follow through with this agenda. Maybe it takes us 50 years to get some of the things changed, right? Generations have to elapse. But my parents weren't like that. They didn't tell me that they didn't have me get involved. They didn't teach me that. I had to learn it and try to teach it. So in between our generations, we're losing the consistency and momentum to keep the idea alive. So we keep reliving these same issues. We keep having protests. We keep having Rodney Kings. We keep having George Floyd.